Hello everyone, and welcome back to Warships Blitz with Terry. Today we are looking at an American battleship. Yes, it's been a while. And I figured this is a line that I've sort of personally discarded a little bit and wasn't too excited about, but haven't really tried all that much. So I figured it's time, let's look at the Minnesota, the Tier 9 American battleship from the alternate history line. This is effectively a modernized South Dakota design, similar to the Kansas at Tier 8, whereas the Vermont at Tier 10 is full-on one out of the hypothetical maximum battleship or Tillman battleship designs. But this is not one of them. This is more the continuation of the standard class of battleships. So what if instead of switching to the fast battleship with the Iowa, and they would have, continued sort of where the Colorados were leaving off, and the North Carolinas as well. So this is more on the slow side of things, but slow, lots of armor, lots of guns, kind of approach. The ships never happened because of the South Dakotas themselves never happened because of naval treaties. But this is sort of the what if it did and got significantly modernized in the process approach. Now, so what is the difference between this thing and an Iowa? Well, let's look at them, right? This is the Minnesota. That is the Iowa. So we've got a modern fast battleship, sleek design, relatively long. And here we've got a big, chunky, chubby thing with plenty of guns all around. And not particularly fast, but yeah, really more of that traditional sort of standard battleship design. But let's look at the stats and see how they compare. Minnesota and Iowa. Iowa obviously being on the traditional, i.e. actually existing battleship line, whereas the Minnesota is on the hypothetical one. Rapid reload versus defensive AA and precise aiming, although it is only a tier 1 skill on each side. The Minnesota has more hit points and better torpedo protection, but doesn't quite get the same fire flooding resistance that the Iowa is getting. Speed is obviously an issue because the Minnesotas are doing a very pedestrian 22.5 knots because while evolving the standard class battleships, the American designers did realize that, faster ships might not be terrible, but it wasn't at the forefront of their designs, and they certainly weren't going to compromise the number of guns or the armor plating for it. So yeah, we've got a much slower, but also much more maneuverable battleship in return. Interestingly enough, she gets a, again, hypothetical 406mm or 16-inch L45 Mark 7 gun. The Mark 6 gun, the infamous misunderstanding with the Bureau of Ordnance, was what eventually evolved into the 50 caliber length Mark 7 guns that we're seeing on the Iowa, which technically should have been on this thing as well. So this might just be like a description bug or something, because these guns look very, very similar, except that you get an extra turret, but you pay for it with 7 seconds more reload. And you don't quite get the same range that you get on the Iowa. Fewer secondaries, but the exact same that they are. And in fact, interestingly, a worse AA. But that is somewhat offset by the fact that you can use a 70% boost by using the defensive AA skill that the Iowa does not have. Nobody cares about concealment. So how is this evolving from the Kansas? Because the Kansas is a very similar ship at Tier 8. And you get an extra precise aim, you get more hit points, you get better torpedo protection, better fire flooding, slightly better maneuverability, surprisingly. And the guns hit a little bit harder, even though they are, on paper, exactly the same guns. The rest is very, very similar. You get better small caliber AA, but it's a very linear progression. So you're in tier 9 in something that, in something that does 22 knots, but only downhill, and if half the crew gets out and pushes. And what do? Well, you need to adjust your playstyle, right? And this is actually a line that you need to adjust two things. You need to adjust the positioning, because just like play it like a Colorado, your positioning is everything. You're a big tonk, but you're not going anywhere anytime soon. So make sure you're going where you need it to, because things like switching flanks is not something you can do in that thing. And you're certainly also not going to ambush anybody or come speeding around an island and say, haha, because this thing doesn't do anything very quickly, including reloading its guns, which is the second part that you really need to take care of. You need to make your shots count. So you really don't want to waste your salvos on this by long-range gunnery against things like highly maneuverable light cruisers or destroyers. But you want to... This is a anti-battleship. I mean, to a degree, all battleships are, but this one more so than others, because you really need to make the slow reload count. And you don't have the maneuverability, or, well, you do have the maneuverability, but not the speed to get anywhere soon, to get up close and personal with this thing. So, how have I set her up? I am going for range, because range is your friend. Because if you can't move the ship, then making the shells go further is really, really important. You could theoretically build for a complete kind of resistance build as well, but I think 4% extra range is a good thing to have, because you also get the American special equipment with the artillery plotting room, which gives you another 4% range on the main battery. Now, you could be very tempted to say, well, yes, but I need to get the precise aim. Well, it's 7% on the skill, and it's 25% on the module, and it's 25% if you use the skill. So the skill is already more than 3 times more efficient than using this, and you've got 4 base charges of it. So you can be quite generous with it. That said, if you feel like you really want that extra little edge, then this is also a choice. Obviously, the reload as well would be a choice to say, hey, I want to get the reload down. In my case, I'm really going with range here because of the to compensate for the lack of speed. And especially on maps where you need to, where you can't easily support flanks, having any bit of range you can squeeze out of that is what you want. Which gets us to a total range of 15.5 kilometers, which is quite nice. So you can unload at enemy battleships at long range, which is what this thing is for. Commander skill wise, there are a couple of choices that you can make. I'm actually going for extended, more defensive AA, because this is something that she can do as well. You can sit around next to your other battleships that are doing long-range gunnery and help out with anti-aircraft firepower. I have not taken the fire supremacy for an extra precise aim. I find kind of 4 is usually enough to get me to the point where I don't need it necessarily anymore. And I also haven't taken the marksman skills. Like, why haven't you not taken the marksman skill, Terry? Because the reload is so long that you're not getting 2 salvos off, even with the marksman skill. Using the precise aim. So this would only be for a faster cooldown, which is important as well. But in return, you get the fully prepared, which gets your repair kit cooldown down, which is also quite useful. So these would both be viable choices. Just be aware that you're not going to be able to get 2 salvos off with the skill actually active. Then obviously extinguisher, compartment maintenance, because I feel this is a ship that you can use to put yourself into harm's way when it comes to aircraft. And demolition expert, because it makes sense. And then obviously you would choose APCS and the horizontal protection once you get to the higher tiers. Camo-wise, if you were so inclined and for some reason you really enjoy the ship and you want to keep a tier 9 battleship around, this is your stock standard battleship camo. I generally complain about the torpedo damage reduction when it comes to these things, because, you know, most of the time it's not really useful. This is one of those ships where you could actually build 4 torpedo damage reduction if you wanted to, and say, I really struggle with dodging torpedoes, and I want to maximize my torpedo damage reduction as to minimize the amount of impact that they're having. They're still going to hurt, but you can buff that if you wanted to. But I am a more traditional player in that regard, and I would like to shoot things at long range, and as such we're doing this. Anyway, for now we're going to just put the standard camo on, and let's play a couple of rounds. I've sort of discarded this line personally because I figured the reload is just too long, and I'm really not going to be enjoying myself too much. It's a mindset question. So you see you're in a battleship, you see a cruiser, you're like, oh, must shoot, primary, you know, hard counter against those things. That's not quite what these things are for, because, you know, at the ranges that you'll be fighting for, at least for the first half or 2/3 of the battles, you're never going to hit anything, and you're just wasting your salvos, which, if you're doing this in an Iowa, is not that much of an issue, because you can use the rapid reload and just, you know, try again. In one of these things, you've got to wait. You might make these salvos count. So your primary targets are enemy battleships. And yes, the reload is long, but at the same time, it is a somewhat rewarding playstyle. It's not particularly difficult, because you don't have to make the hard choices, because you really don't have the capability. You don't go anywhere quickly, so you can spend the time between the reloads observing the map, and, you know, going where you're supposed to be going very slowly. But adjusting your positioning, and then taking pot shots at long range at enemy battleships. Anyway, let's go and see that in action. The first battle is a domination game on Sea of Fortune. We are top tier, so it's a tier 9 battle. And we're up against Enterprise, enemy Minnesota, Bismarck, Amagi, Ognivoy, and a Nakatsuki. How did a Nakatsuki get in here? Fail platoon, that's why. Fail platoon is if you have a mixed setup, you know, a mixed tier setup in your division, and except for if you're doing this with a carrier, because then you can guarantee sort of a lower tier game. But in this case, it's an Ognivoy and a Nakatsuki, so they can get into a tier 7 game where you're facing tier 7s and tier 6s, in which case the Ognivoy would be 2 tiers ahead of the lowest, so that'd be a 2-tier spread. Yeah, but in return, you can also get yourself into a tier 9 game where the Akatsuki is 2 tiers below. So that's sort of the evening out justice. Anyway, let's get going. So, mindset. I think for me, the key to these ships is a change in mindset. It's not necessarily how I generally play Battleship. You can tank a little bit, but you don't want to be taking point. Well, nobody takes point in Minnesota anyway, because the thing isn't fast enough. But your targeting priorities are enemy battleships, because you really have to make these salvos count. And if you do that, then and focus on what you're good at, and, you know, leave the rest to your team, then you can at least make some impact. Anyway, we have an Amagi with us who is AFK, maybe, but doesn't seem to be inclined to go and capture. So disregard everything I just said. I'm going to have to take point and capture C eventually, because I am doing a whopping 23.2 knots with all the consumables and everything. But, you know, someone's got to do it. And at least I'm not super afraid of the carrier. Now, of course, there are 2 destroyers out there, and I've got the armor piercing loaded. So if any of these destroyers gets into C-Cup, I'm in trouble. That's why I'm using my concealment, or rather lack thereof, because I'm not spotted. So there's no destroyer coming down this way, at least not yet. They might sit behind the island, but I would eventually be spotted. I'm not air spotted, because the carrier is going center, which leads me to believe that there's no destroyer here. And we've got now the Akatsuki spotted, who is coming that way. But we do, however, have a Bismarck and an enemy Minnesota there. So I'm not cupping, but I am going to align myself, and then I'm going to slow that right down, use the precise aim, and get the salvo out at the Bismarck at this range. Because, you know, a Bismarck is a brawler, and there's an enemy Minnesota, so that would be a fair fight, and I'm not so sure about that Amagi there. So I'm just going to reverse. And yeah, the Amagi seems to be firing high explosive at the Bismarck and missing. So yeah, I don't want to... I'm going to reverse. And that often enough throws people off. We are getting another battleship coming in here, but I am contending myself not to try and brawl a Bismarck, because that's not something I'm very good at, but just, you know, shoot at it from long range and reverse and get these people something else to shoot at. And we have a Freddy coming around. Freddy is much more suitable to go in there and get up close and personal than I am. I'm just a little battleship that likes to shoot from long range and not get up close and personal with anybody. So Freddy, your job is gonna do something about that Bismarck. I'm gonna get some shots off. Again, manual aim. I think I have managed to hit the island a little bit here. No, I've managed to hit the Freddy. Freddy, what are you doing? Get in there. You're a German battleship, top tier. You're Why? Shoot the Bismarck. Bother that. I'm gonna have to cap, don't I? Oh well. Well, first we shoot the Bismarck some more because my guns are almost reloaded. And as you can see, the friendly carrier has done anything except dealing with the destroyer that's coming through the center that has been spotted for ages. Well, that's probably going to come back to bite him. Not that I can do anything about it. I mean, I could try, but honestly, why would I? I have to make my shots count, and I can't go chasing after destroyers. So, carrier, that was your job, to deal with the destroyer, because we have no cruisers, and I'm certainly not in a battleship that can do anything about destroyers. So, yeah, there he comes. He's going after you. Now, if he goes chasing after the carrier, there's an important implication here. He's not capping, which means I can cap. And I'm relatively safe. And the other destroyer is over in A cup. Ow, somebody hit me here. That's probably the enemy, Minnesota. So yeah, yes, carrier, you're in trouble now. Well, can't help you with that one, bite. So I'm going to brawl this friendly Minnesota with some fire support from long-range fire support from the Friedrich der Große. Yes, I just said that. But we should get a salvo off, and we might get behind the island, at least from the rear turrets. We might get behind the island before he can reload, which means I can get the front turrets out. Akatsuki is chasing after the carrier. Perfect. Carrier, your complete use at this point is to distract the Akatsuki for long enough. And the enemy Minnesota wants to brawl. Okay, let's do this, Bo. I've got way more hit points than you. Are you sure that you want to do this? This might be an unfair fight. And I'm going to go for the cup as well, because these two clowns are all the way sailing around the center, the edge of the map, rather than going after the capture circles. But I had more hit points to start with, so despite nobody reloading very quickly here, I should be able to beat his reload on the mains and kill him with the secondaries. Oh, just 1 second, but most of it has bounced off the belt plating. So we are now taking B cap. The Akatsuki is still chasing the carrier. The carrier being, well, literally the only use of the carrier is to distract that Akatsuki, and he's doing a good job in that. And we still don't get to sink the Bismarck, but there's also an Amagi. And while there's still an Ognivoy around here somewhere, but the Friedrich der Große is sailing around the long way, and the Amagi is obviously shooting at me. But that Bismarck should be reasonably dead once I can get the lock on. I might just be using like 1 or 2 turrets. It's got a little bit of hit points recovered. Let's use the 2 forward turrets. That should be enough, and then get the Amagi killed. Get the rear turrets on the Amagi. Okay, there's the Ognivoy. And so we probably want to just, modify our course and speed a little bit, just in case he's got torpedoes away. Yep, there they come. But the Ognivoy is in a dogfight with an enemy destroyer, so not a huge issue. And it looks like somebody's managed to kill the Akatsuki. That might be the friendly carrier. Well done, carrier. So yeah, Amagi, I'm pretty sure you don't want to do that. There comes the Ognivoy. Yes, I've seen you. Yes, I'm not going to be running away anytime soon. Yes, you might be able to kill me now. But he is coming under fire from the Benson. Well done, Benson. So let's see if the secondaries are able to kill the Ognivoy before he gets his torpedoes away. I'm just going to turn the ship around in case he dropped that. I don't think he got to drop his torpedoes because he was like, oh, battleship must rush. Well, you're being shot at. You probably don't want to. You want to deal with your actual problems first. So can we get the Amagi kill? I think Benson's got that one. And Benson definitely deserves that for killing the Ognivoy. Thanks very much. And he can now also farm the enemy carrier. and who has kind of got the same problem that the friendly carrier has, that he hasn't been paying attention, and there was a Benson running rampant right in front of his nose. So I'm not sure what he was doing, but well, he's got Benson problems. Well, it's the last ship alive, so I am going to get one salvo off here, maybe, and that's the last salvo that I'm actually going to be using, because the battle is about to end. Let's see if we can still get some hits on target. We can, but I think the second... no. But we still did a respectable... What did we do? 116,000 points of damage. I mean, yes, we were top tier, but still. Terry, I thought you said this was a long-range battleship fighty thing. Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, if your team completely refuses to win, even in one of these things, you're gonna have to go and do the cap circle business, you know, and brawl enemy battleships. Let's do that again. A little bit more in the direction that I actually said it was gonna go. So here we are on everybody's favorite map, Fault Line. We are fighting with we're bottom tier this time. We're fighting Midway, Vermont, Monty, Friesland, and Benham. So it's a 5v5. And it's base capture. So what do we want to do? Well, like I said, mostly, unless you're... It's not a domination battle, all right? So I don't have to rush the cap. Oh god, I'm never gonna get over that. Anyway, gearing, you're somewhat on your own if you want to rush the flank, because I'm in Minnesota. I'm not rushing anywhere. I need to. Fault Line is one of those maps which really has issues with support. So if I'm going to go down that flank, I'm probably going to get to fight, I don't know, not an awful lot, and it's going to take 5 minutes to get to the point where I actually get shots at the enemy battleships, which is what I'm supposed to do for the onset of the battle. So instead, I'm going to go towards the center, which means I still have some shots in support here for the gearing if he manages to spot anything, unless it's a destroyer, in which case I'm not going to bother, unless I have nothing better to shoot at. And I'm going to head more towards the center, because I might be useful AA-wise. Enemy carrier sends in some torpedo bombers here. I'm still not spotted. So there's no enemy destroyer coming down this route yet. Now I'm probably air spotted, but now obviously I can't tell anymore. Gearing is going extremely the long way around, and the carrier seems to be going not after me. No, he's going after the bot Monty. Okay, so he just wants to get the bot out of the way. We're seeing all three battleships going left, going the western flank by the looks of it. Yeah. So that Monty is going to die, but that means they are somewhat... Okay, that's a Vermont. He's in the same position that I am. He's just got bigger guns. So, and there is a Baltimore. We might be able to help with that, but first we'll sink some shots into that Izumo over there. And then we'll switch targets and try to support the Benson. Because bot Baltimore is actually quite dangerous. And there's a Benham as well. Now Benham I am not going to bother with. That's a carrier or Benson problem. But let's support the Benson against the Baltimore, because that thing's dangerous. So shots out. I am switching to the high explosive just in case Benham comes my way. And yeah. Plonk. I mean, it's a bot, so... Benham, are you coming after me? Or is... Okay, so Benham is seeing a bot that he can farm and is going for it. Yeah, he's not coming down this way. So he's just going to go after the bot battleship. Much appreciated. So I might loosen one salvo with the HE against the Benham. Yeah, he smokes up, so just you know, general direction, and then we will go back to the armor piercing and go back into the middle. Because our left flank is where and the gearing takes out the Baltimore. Nicely done, gearing. Because the Benham hasn't been paying attention and has been playing with the bot Monty, I have found myself a Vermont to shoot at. Is that Vermont AFK? You can never tell with these things, because they just tend to sit still and fire their guns every 30 seconds. So I'm not sure if he is. I mean, he's getting dropped now by the carrier. Which doesn't do it. No, he's moving. He's moving. Oh no, he's alive. He's alive. Okay, shots out at the Vermont. But I'm continuing towards more the center. And yep, I'll take that. And so the Benham, the gearing on our team is now free to move, because the Benham has still not managed to kill that bot Monty. Now, bots have magic torpedo dodging. No, never mind, he did. So now the gearing has a Benham issue. But he is somewhat threatening the cup. Carrier is keeping him spotted by positioning fighters over him. But I am somewhat concerned about our other flank. Now, is that Benham... Okay, I'm going to switch back to the high explosive because that Benham looks like he might be coming down. Or is he going to engage the gearing? It's difficult to tell. Okay, back to the armor piercing. I've got nothing to shoot at anyway at this point. Okay, Vermont takes out the Yamato. And there's one battleship pushing down here. I'm not sure if that's a bot or not. There was a bot Izumo, but that's probably dead, in which case that would be the Montana, if I remember correctly. So Malta, yeah, that's a Friesland. Okay, Friesland has no torpedoes, so now the high explosive would have been useful, but now he smokes up anyway. So Malta, that's a you problem. I'll deal with Monty, you'll deal with Friesland, all right? I know Friesland's got terrifying AA, but that's a full health Monty. So Friesland has no torpedoes. And in that case, I'll take my chance. No, leave the Monty to me. That's all right. Deal with the Friesland, if you don't mind. That would be awesome. That would be swell. But yeah, Friesland's got terrifying AA. Monty's quite nasty as well. But at least the carrier moves. So that's a good move. So Monty's shooting at the carrier because carriers, which gives me time to sink some shots into him. And I need to defend the cup. The gearing is still going for the enemy cup. We're 1 kill down. We've got 2 minutes to go. And there's one of our battleships sailing around. I'm not sure what he's doing. But Montana, you and me, bro. Let's go. I do have a bit of an advantage because Monty's been shooting at the carrier and is now just realizing that I've actually come around to defend here. Friesland might be going for the cup. I think he's a little late for that. But if he's still busy trying to kick the Malta to death, then I am going to try and kill that Monty over there. And I think the Malta is trying to focus fire, which is good, which is okay. I'll take it. I'm not super scared of the Monty. I think I've got the Monty, but yeah, obviously if he has no visual on the Friesland, at least he make the Friesland ink. So the Friesland's now smoking up, which means he's not coming for the capture circle, which means he's not going to have enough time to capture, which means we need the kill on the Montana. So Carrier's doing the right thing here. We need the kill on the Monty because that battleship up north there might die, and our gearing is still fighting it out with the Benham. And now there comes the Friesland, but I think we can get the Montana killed. Maybe we can also get the Friesland killed. He is almost in secondary range. And you're winning. All you had to do was not be here. I mean, the Montana might die, but they're now 2 kills ahead. So Friesland is smelling, and got lucky there. Friesland is smelling a kill here, but I've got the secondaries ready, and I have the armor piercing loaded, but he's not damage-conning the fire, but he might be out-healed at, I'm not sure. So I've got the high explosive loaded here. Sorry, not the armor piercing. I got the high explosive loaded. Dead Friesland. We're still behind on points. I've got 25 seconds left. If I can kill the Montana, we might be in for a draw because the gearing has died. Depending on what our battleship up in the north can pull there. But yeah, Carrier does the right thing. We need to kill that Monty. I've got 1 salvo left coming off. So that salvo, I need to make it count. Okay, that's the last salvo I'm going to fire in this game, and if that Monty survives, then we lose. Nope, the Monty dead, and I think somebody else killed something as well, because we're now a kill ahead, and we win the game. Yeah, so see, this is what I mean. It's actually not as boring as I thought, because of the target prioritization. It's actually a relatively easy line to play. Because you don't have to make the 2 things that the one thing that you kind of have to get right is positioning. But mostly you can content yourself with, playing at range, targeting enemy battleships, because that's what you're for. That's what you're good at. You don't have the rate of fire to do anything else unless it's, a cruiser at point blank range or something. But most of the time, just use your salvos against enemy battleships, make them count, give AA support if you can, and probably be a defensive line because you're not rushing anything. So this is one of those ships that's actually not super difficult to play, and that is actually can be quite enjoyable to play. I find, to my own surprise. So I might pick that up again and give that another spin on my personal account whenever I have some blueprints free to go through the Kansas and eventually to the Vermont. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thanks everybody, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.